He thought he'd just saved the company a few $100. He had no idea that $3,800 check was the key to me reclaiming everything that had kept his company alive for over a decade. No drama, no drawn-out lawsuits, just a forgotten clause buried in paperwork from 15 years ago, and a trap that had been waiting all this time to snap shut. That smirk on his face when he handed me the check, I still see it sometimes. Not with anger anymore, with something closer to pity. My name is Emily Hartman, and after 14 years of bleeding myself dry for Medavance systems, I was about to be thrown away like a used tissue. The call came at 9:30 a.m. on a Tuesday. Rebecca from HR. Her voice artificially bright. "Could you come to conference room A? Just a quick meeting." I knew something was wrong the moment I walked through those glass doors. The room that usually hosted our product launches and client presentations had been transformed into an execution chamber. Lucas Ford sat in Harold's chair, the founder's chair, his 28-year-old body trying to fill a space carved out by decades of actual leadership. His uncle, our real CEO, was supposedly on medical leave. Lucas had been temporarily running things for exactly 6 weeks. "Emily," he said, not looking up from his phone. The way he said my name, like it was something bitter he needed to spit out. "Sit." I remained standing. 14 years of designing the medical devices that built this company's reputation, and this boy who'd been handed a Harvard MBA by his trust fund wanted me to sit like a scolded child. "Fine, stand then." He finally looked up, and I saw it. That particular gleam of satisfaction that only comes from wielding borrowed power. "I'll make this quick. We're restructuring the design department. Your position has been eliminated." The words hung in the air between us. Through the glass walls, I could see my team pretending to work, stealing glances at the conference room. They knew. Everyone always knows before you do. 14 years, I said quietly. "Yes, well," Lucas pulled out a check from his jacket pocket, the kind of theatrical gesture he must have rehearsed. "The company appreciates your service. Here's your final compensation. $3,800. 2 weeks severance as per the restructuring clause." He slid the check across the table with 2 fingers, like he was afraid poverty might be contagious. Then, loud enough for the people outside to hear through the glass, "You should be grateful. Most companies wouldn't even give you that much for a redundant position." Redundant. The woman who designed the IV monitoring system that generated 60% of their revenue was redundant. I picked up the check, studying the number, $3,800. Something about it nagged at me, like a half-remembered dream. Lucas was already standing, adjusting his Hermes tie, ready to move on to his next power play. "We'll need your badge and laptop," he said. "Rebecca will escort you to clear out your desk. You have 30 minutes. "Of course," I said, folding the check carefully and placing it in my pocket. My voice was steady, professional. Inside, something else was happening. Not anger exactly, but a cold kind of clarity. The kind that comes when you realize the universe has just handed you something wrapped as an insult that might actually be a gift. Lucas paused at the door, turned back with that practiced executive smile he'd probably learned at some leadership seminar. "Nothing personal, Emily, just business. You understand." I understood more than he could possibly imagine as he strutted out, leaving me alone in that glass box with everyone watching. I touched the check in my pocket again, $3,800. The number finally clicked into place, and I had to bite my lip to keep from smiling. Harold Kane, the founder who'd hired me fresh out of MIT, had been paranoid about protecting his engineers, especially after his first company had been gutted by corporate raiders. When he'd drawn up my contract all those years ago, he'd included something special, something Lucas, in all his MBA glory, had clearly never bothered to read. Rebecca walked beside me like a prison guard, her heels clicking against the polished floor in a rhythm that seemed to count down my final minutes at Medavance. The open office had gone quiet, that particular silence that falls when everyone's pretending not to watch a public execution. My desk sat in the corner by the windows, the spot I'd earned after the first successful product launch. 14 years of accumulated life stared back at me, the framed photo from our first FDA approval celebration, my collection of prototype sketches, the coffee mug with Design Queen printed in fading letters, a gift from the team after I'd pulled 3 all-nighters to fix a critical flaw in the pediatric monitor design. I pulled out a cardboard box that Rebecca had thoughtfully provided. How efficient. "You have 25 minutes left," she announced, loud enough for everyone to hear. Corporate theater at its finest. I started packing methodically. The personal items went in first. Photos of my late father who'd been so proud when I got this job. The small cactus that had somehow survived despite my neglect. The notebook where I'd first sketched the revolutionary valve design that had made Medavance a household name in hospitals across the country. My hands paused on that notebook. Inside were the original concepts for every major product we'd launched. My ideas, my solutions, my sleepless nights translated into ink and possibility. I placed it carefully in the box. "Emily," Mark from the engineering team appeared at my desk, glancing nervously at Rebecca. I just wanted to say, "It's fine, Mark." I kept packing, not meeting his eyes. "Really?" He shuffled away, and others kept their distance. I didn't blame them. In corporate America, termination is contagious. Association with the departed could mark you as the next sacrifice. That's when Lucas appeared again, cologne announcing his arrival before his voice did. Tom Ford, if I had to guess. About $300 a bottle. Probably what he spent on fragrance in a month would have covered a junior designer's rent. "Almost done here." He surveyed my desk like a conquering general. "Good. We need to move quickly. Your replacement starts Monday." My replacement? I wondered which desperate soul had already been lined up, probably at 60% of my salary. "Oh, and Emily." He leaned against my desk, contaminating it with his presence. "No hard feelings, right? It's just cost-cutting. You understand. Your salary was unsustainable for what you contributed." Unsustainable. $3,800 was all my 14 years were worth now. I kept packing, staying silent. "I mean, let's be honest," he continued, emboldened by my lack of response. "The designs have been stagnant lately. We need fresh blood, new perspectives, someone who understands modern manufacturing efficiency." Modern manufacturing efficiency, code for cheaper materials and offshore production. I placed my awards in the box. 3 patents, 2 Industry Innovation Awards, 1 Lifetime Achievement Recognition from the Medical Device Society. Nothing to say. Lucas's voice carried a note of disappointment. He'd wanted a scene, something to justify his decision to the watching employees. I finally looked up at him, really looked at him. Soft hands that had never held a soldering iron, eyes that had never squinted through microscopes at 3 a.m. trying to solve a problem that could save lives. A suit that cost more than some of my junior designers made in a month. "Actually, yes," I said, my voice calm. "That check you gave me, $3,800. What about it?" "Just making sure I have the amount right, for my records." He laughed, that particular laugh of someone who thinks they've won everything worth winning. "Yes, 3,800. Like I said, you should be grateful." Grateful. I touched the check in my pocket one more time. Harold's voice echoed in my memory from 15 years ago. "If they ever try to push you out, Emily, they'll probably try to do it cheap. That's what these corporate raiders always do. But I've made sure that if they ever pay you even a penny less than your protected minimum, well, let's just say you'll have options." $4,000. That had been the magic number Harold had written into my contract. Any final payment below that amount would trigger something Lucas couldn't even imagine. "You're right," I said, sealing my box. "I should be grateful." Lucas straightened his tie, satisfied. "Glad you see it that way. Rebecca will walk you out." As I lifted my box, I took one last look around the office, at the products on the display wall that bore my invisible fingerprints, at the team that wouldn't meet my eyes, at Lucas, already on his phone, probably bragging to someone about the money he'd just saved the company. $3,800, $200 short of protecting their entire product line. "Harold, you brilliant, paranoid genius, even from beyond the grave, you were still looking out for your engineers. The apartment felt different when you entered it, knowing you wouldn't be leaving for work tomorrow." I set the box on my kitchen counter and pulled out the check again. $3,800. Such a specific number to choose for destroying someone's career. I poured myself a glass of wine, the good stuff I'd been saving for a special occasion, and opened my laptop. The contract was saved in a folder labeled Important Documents, a PDF scanned so many years ago I'd almost forgotten it existed. Harold had insisted I keep a copy. Never trust HR with the only version of your contract. Emily, they have a way of losing convenient pages. I scrolled through the standard clauses: confidentiality, non-compete, the usual corporate chains. Then, on page 17, buried in a section about intellectual property rights, there it was. Section 8.4.2, written in Harold's uniquely paranoid style. In the event that the employee's final compensation from the company falls below the protected minimum compensation of $4,000, all intellectual property rights, patents, designs, and associated materials created by the employee during their tenure shall automatically revert to the employee's sole ownership, effective 30 days from the date of final payment. I read it 3 times, then laughed. Actually laughed, alone in my apartment with a box of my professional life sitting next to me. Lucas had tried to save the company $200. Those $200 were about to cost them everything. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contacts. David Sloan answered on the second ring. Emily Hartman. His voice was warm, familiar. It's been, 3 years since the Morrison patent dispute. David, I need your help. Are you still practicing IP law? Best in Boston. What's going on? I explained the situation, reading him the clause word for word. The silence on the other end stretched so long I thought we'd been disconnected. Emily, he finally said, and I could hear him trying to contain his excitement. Please tell me you have documentation of this payment amount. A physical check, signed by Lucas Ford, dated today. And your protected minimum, $4,000. David whistled low. How many patents are we talking about? I pulled up my records. 17 patents, 32 registered designs, and the core architecture for their entire product line. Jesus Christ. And they paid you $3,800. Lucas wanted to save money on the redundant position. I couldn't keep the satisfaction out of my voice. Emily, do you understand what this means? In 30 days, you'll own the intellectual foundation of Metavant Systems. They won't be able to manufacture a single unit without your permission. I understand perfectly. We need to document everything immediately. Can you come to my office tomorrow morning? Bring the check. Don't deposit it yet. Bring your contract, all your patent documentation, everything. David, I said, staring at the Design Queen mug I'd unpacked. I want to do this quietly. No communication with the company, no hints, nothing. Let them think I've just disappeared. You want them to walk into it blind? It wasn't a question. They gave me 30 minutes to pack up 14 years of my life. They can have 30 days to enjoy their cost savings. David chuckled. Harold always said you were the smartest engineer he ever hired. I don't think he meant just technically. 9 a.m. tomorrow. I'll be there. After I hung up, I sat in the gathering darkness of my apartment, not bothering to turn on the lights. Through the window, I could see the Metavance building in the distance, its windows still glowing with the light of people working late. People working on my designs, my innovations, my patents. My phone buzzed with texts from colleagues. Sarah from engineering. I'm so sorry, this is bullshit. James from production. Can't believe they did this to you. A few others, carefully worded to express sympathy without actual commitment. Then, a LinkedIn notification. Lucas had posted, excited to announce a successful restructuring of our design department at Metavant Systems. By optimizing our talent allocation and eliminating redundancies, we're positioning ourselves for a leaner, more efficient future. Leadership, cost optimization, corporate strategy. Eliminating redundancies. I screenshot the post. David would probably want that for the files. 30 days. That's all they had left to manufacture products using my patents without my permission. 30 days before 14 years of intellectual property became solely mine. 30 days before Lucas Ford learned that sometimes the most expensive mistakes come from trying to save the smallest amounts. I raised my wineglass to the darkened sky, to Harold's memory, and to Section 8.42. Thank you for being paranoid, you beautiful bastard. The check sat on my counter, looking harmless. $3,800, the price Lucas had put on my career, the cost of his arrogance, the key to everything. I pulled out my notebook. the one with all my original designs, and started making lists, not of what I'd lost, but of what I was about to take back. The first week of unemployment should have been devastating. Instead, I became a ghost with a purpose. I deleted LinkedIn, ignored Facebook, let calls go to voicemail. When concerned friends asked, I simply said I was taking time to reassess. They assumed I was depressed. I let them. David had been thorough. We'd filed everything with the patent office, prepared the documentation, set up the legal framework for what was coming. Remember, he'd said, absolute radio silence. The element of surprise is worth millions in this case. So I disappeared. I shopped at different grocery stores to avoid running into former colleagues. I took morning runs at 5 a.m. instead of 7 to dodge the Metavance jogging club. I became invisible in my own city, watching from the shadows as the company continued its victory lap. Lucas was everywhere on social media, proud to announce Q3 projections exceed expectations thanks to our streamlined operations, accompanied by a photo of him at my old desk. He'd actually moved into the design department to be closer to the innovation. Sarah texted me screenshots sometimes, despite my silence. He's using your office now. Has anyone who suggests design changes come to him first? Says he wants to be hands-on with product development. I didn't respond, but I saved everything. Week 2 brought unexpected intelligence. My phone rang at 11 p.m. Jake Morrison, a junior designer I'd mentored. Emily, I'm sorry to call. I know you probably don't want to hear from anyone, but I thought you should know. His voice was hushed, probably calling from a bathroom stall. Lucas is taking credit for the new valve design. The one you submitted 3 months ago, he's presenting it to the board tomorrow as his innovation. That's interesting, I said carefully. It's bullshit is what it is. He's also been telling investors that the design team is more productive without what he calls legacy overhead. That's you. He's calling you legacy overhead. Legacy overhead. I wrote it down in my notebook, next to all the other gems I'd been collecting. Jake, I appreciate you calling, but you should be careful. Don't risk your job for me. Are you okay financially? I mean, because some of us were thinking we could... I'm fine, Jake. Better than fine. Just take care of yourself. I hung up and marked another day off my calendar. 18 days left. The third week, Lucas got bolder. Another LinkedIn post, this time with a photo of him holding up my original prototype for the pediatric monitor. Sometimes leadership means making tough decisions. Since restructuring our design department, innovation has increased by 30%, proof that fresh perspectives drive progress. Had disruptive leadership, innovation had medtech. Fresh perspectives. He was literally holding my 5-year-old design. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, then saw the preview. This is Harold Kane's widow, Margaret Kane. I'd met her a handful of times at company events before Harold's death 2 years ago. Her message was brief. I heard what Lucas did. Harold would be rolling in his grave. Hope you're well. I thought for a long moment, then replied, Tell me, did Harold ever mention anything about Section 8.42 to you? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, he used to say it was his insurance policy for his best engineers, called it his golden parachute in reverse. Why? No reason, just remembering his wisdom. Emily, did that little shit trigger the clause? I didn't reply, but she sent one more message, good. Day 25, I got a call from David. Everything's in place. The patent transfers are ready to execute automatically at midnight on day 30. Are you prepared for what comes next? I've been prepared since the moment Lucas handed me that check. They could offer you a fortune to come back. They could try to challenge the clause in court. They could try. David laughed. You know, in 20 years of practicing IP law, I've never seen a company hand over its entire future for $200 in savings. Lucas wanted to make an example of me, show everyone that no one was irreplaceable. I looked at my calendar. 5 days left, circled in red. He was right about one thing. I'm not irreplaceable. I'm something much better. What's that? I'm indispensable. He just doesn't know it yet. That night, I pulled up Metavance's website. Their entire product line was displayed proudly. The IV monitors, the pediatric systems, the revolutionary valve designs. each one born from my notebooks, my late nights, my refusal to accept good enough. In 5 days, they would all belong to me. I opened a bottle of champagne I'd been saving. Not the good stuff this time. That was for day 30. This was the adequate stuff, the kind you drink while watching a timer count down to 0. I raised my glass to Lucas's LinkedIn profile photo, that confident smile under the headline, "Driving Innovation Through Strategic Leadership." "Nothing personal," I whispered to his picture. "Just business, you understand." The city lights twinkled outside my window, and somewhere in that glittering maze, Lucas Ford was probably sleeping soundly, dreaming of cost savings and efficiency metrics, completely unaware that his $3,800 check had lit a 15-year-old fuse. 5 more days. Day 30 arrived with unusual sunshine for November. I woke at 6 a.m., made coffee, and opened my laptop to watch the automated transfer process that David had set up. At exactly 9 a.m., 30 days to the minute from when Lucas had handed me that check, the United States Patent and Trademark Office updated their records. 17 patents, 32 designs, all transferred from Medavance Systems to Emily R. Hartman, sole proprietor. The PDF confirmation arrived in my inbox at 9:03. I printed it out, all 47 pages, and laid them across my dining room table like tarot cards revealing the future. My name stood alone on every single page where it used to share space with Medavance Systems. David called at 9:15. "It's done. You are now the sole owner of every significant piece of intellectual property Medavance has developed in the last decade." How long before they notice? Could be days, could be weeks. Depends on when they need to reference the patents for manufacturing or legal purposes. But I've prepared something to speed up the process, if you're ready. Send it. The fax? Yes. David insisted on a fax for the delicious, antiquated formality of it, would arrive at Medavance's legal department at precisely 10 a.m. It contained a simple notice of patent transfer, a schedule of licensing fees should they wish to continue manufacturing, and a cease and desist order effective immediately for all products utilizing my intellectual property without a licensing agreement. The licensing fee David had suggested was reasonable. For a company that hadn't just fired me, $7 million annually, plus 12% royalties on all sales, and a one-time retroactive usage fee of $3 million for the 30 days since my termination. I spent the morning calmly organizing my apartment, doing laundry, normal Saturday things, but I kept my phone close, waiting. The first call came at 2:17 p.m., unknown number, but I recognized the Medavance conference room line. I let it ring. 5 more calls followed in rapid succession, then texts started flooding in from former colleagues. Sarah. What is happening? Jake. Legal is losing their minds. Mark. Please tell me you did what I think you did. At 4 p.m., a call from Richard Blackwood, chairman of the board. I'd met him exactly twice in 14 years. I let that ring too. At 5:30 p.m., Lucas himself called. Then again at 5:35, 5:40, 5:47. Finally, at 6 p.m., a text from his personal number, "Emily, we need to talk. This is a misunderstanding." A misunderstanding? Like the $3,800 check had been a typo. David called at 7. "They've officially received and acknowledged the cease and desist. Their general counsel is requesting an emergency meeting tomorrow." On a Sunday. Apparently their production line is supposed to ship 800 units to Cleveland Clinic on Monday. Without a licensing agreement, that's 800 patent violations. I smiled. Remembering the Cleveland Clinic deal, I'd designed special modifications specifically for their requirements. Tell them Monday, 2 p.m., their offices. Emily, they're desperate. You could probably demand. Monday, 2 p.m., let them sweat through the weekend. That night, I actually slept well for the first time in a month. My phone buzzed constantly on the nightstand, but I'd turned off the sound. The city lights looked different somehow, less like a maze where I'd lost myself, and more like a kingdom waiting for its queen to return. Sunday arrived with 17 voicemails. I didn't listen to any of them. Instead, I went to the Museum of Fine Arts, had lunch at my favorite Vietnamese restaurant, bought fresh flowers for my apartment, normal Sunday things, except for the phone burning up in my purse. At 3 p.m., Margaret Kane called. The board had an emergency meeting this morning. They're panicking. Richard called Harold's old attorney trying to find a loophole in your contract. And Harold's attorney laughed at him, actually laughed, then billed them $400 for the 15-minute call. How do you know all this? I still own 12% of the company. Dear, they had to inform me about the potential material impact on operations. She paused. Lucas looked like he was going to vomit during the video call. Good. Emily, I know Harold would want me to ask, what's your endgame here? I thought about it, watching the sunset paint my apartment gold. Did you know Lucas called me redundant? Said my designs were stagnant. That little fool. My endgame is to show him exactly how redundant I am, and to make sure that every single product that leaves that factory has my name on it, every unit they ship, every device that saves a life, every innovation they claim, it all goes through me first. Margaret laughed, bright and sharp. Harold always said you were his best hire, not just because of your designs, but because you understood the value of what you created. Make them pay, Emily. Make them pay dearly. As I prepared for bed, I laid out my clothes for tomorrow's meeting. Not the conservative dress I'd worn for 14 years of being overlooked and undervalued. Instead, the power suit I'd bought 3 years ago and never had the courage to wear. Black, sharp enough to cut, expensive enough to show I didn't need their money anymore. One more voicemail came through at 11:47 p.m. from Lucas. Please, Emily, we can work this out. It doesn't have to be this way. I deleted it without listening to the end. Yes, Lucas, it did have to be this way. You made it this way when you handed me that check with your smirk and your cologne and your absolute certainty that I would simply disappear. Tomorrow, you'd learn that some things, once broken, reassemble themselves into something far more dangerous. The Medavance lobby hadn't changed in 31 days, but I had. The security guard did a double take when I walked through the glass doors at 1:55 p.m. David beside me carrying his leather briefcase like a weapon. Ms. Hartman. Carl, who'd waved me through these doors for 14 years, looked confused. Should I? Do you have a visitor's badge? She's expected, David said smoothly. Conference room A? The elevator ride felt like ascending to a throne room. David adjusted his tie. Remember, you hold all the cards, every single one. I haven't forgotten. The C-suite floor was silent except for the hum of anxiety. Through the glass walls of conference room A, I could see them assembled like a council of war, Richard Blackwood at the head. Lucas to his right looking pale and somehow smaller, the CFO Sandra Williams, head of legal Tom Morrison, and VP of operations Derek Schultz. We entered without knocking. Emily, Richard stood, extending his hand. I didn't take it. Thank you for coming. I sat down across from them, David beside me, the same chair where Lucas had terminated me 31 days ago. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Let's dispense with pleasantries, I said. You've reviewed the patent transfers. Tom Morrison cleared his throat. We believe there may be grounds to challenge. There aren't, David interrupted. I've already consulted with 3 IP specialists, including a former USPTO examiner. The clause is ironclad. The transfer is complete, and any attempt to challenge would take years and cost millions, during which time Medavance couldn't manufacture a single unit without facing patent infringement charges. Emily, Richard's voice was carefully controlled. Surely we can come to an arrangement. You helped build this company. I did, and then you let your nephew destroy my career for $200 in savings. Lucas flinched. His uncle's jaw tightened. The licensing terms you've proposed, Sandra Williams interjected, shuffling papers. $7 million annually plus 12% royalties. It would cripple us. No, I said. It would cost you exactly what my innovations are worth. You've been getting them for the price of a salary for 14 years. That sale just ended. This is extortion, Lucas burst out, his first word since I'd entered. No, I leaned forward, meeting his eyes. This is business, nothing personal. You understand? His face flushed red, recognizing his own words. Derek Schultz spoke up. We have 800 units scheduled to ship tomorrow. Cleveland Clinic. Without those deliveries, we breach a $10 million contract. That sounds like a pressing problem, I said. One you created. Lucas slammed his hand on the table. One you created, I corrected. When you paid me $3,800, had you paid $4,000, we wouldn't be here. How could we have known about that clause? Richard asked. Due diligence reading contracts before making termination decisions. Not putting a 28-year-old with no product development experience in charge of engineering decisions. I shrugged. Just suggestions. Tom Morrison pulled out a document. We're prepared to offer you immediate reinstatement, back pay, and a 30% salary increase. No. Equity participation, 2% of the company. No. Emily, Richard leaned forward. What do you want? I stood up, smoothed my suit jacket, and looked at each of them in turn. I want the licensing agreement David sent you. $7 million annually, 12% royalties, $3 million retroactive fee, and one more thing. Name it, Richard said quickly. Every product, every unit, every piece of marketing material, and every package that uses my patents must clearly state core technology licensed from Emily R. Hartman, sole patent holder, not in fine print. Same size font as your company name. That's humiliating, Lucas whispered. That's accurate, I corrected. You have 1 hour to decide. David will be waiting in the lobby. If we don't have a signed agreement by 3 p.m., the price goes up by $1 million every hour until midnight, at which point I'll explore exclusive licensing arrangements with your competitors. You can't, Lucas started. I am. I picked up my purse. Oh, and Lucas, that LinkedIn post where you called me redundant and claimed innovation increased after I left, I've screenshot it. My attorney suggests it would make excellent evidence of willful disparagement if we end up in court. The room erupted as David and I walked out. Through the glass, I could see Richard's face turning purple as he spoke to Lucas, Sandra frantically calculating on her tablet, Tom flipping through contracts. David and I sat in the lobby, watching the minutes tick by on the massive corporate clock. Carl, the security guard, brought us coffee, whispering, "Good for you, Ms. Hartman." At 2:47 p.m., Tom Morrison appeared with a manila folder. His hands shook slightly as he handed it to David. Signed by all board members present. David reviewed each page carefully, then nodded to me. I signed my name with the Mont Blanc pen Harold had given me for my 5-year anniversary. Pleasure doing business, I said, standing. Richard Blackwood had come down to the lobby. Emily, you've made your point. You've won. Why the public attribution requirement? I thought about 14 years of invisible innovations, of watching Lucas take credit for my valve design, of being called redundant. Because for 14 years, my name appeared nowhere on the products I created. That invisibility is what made me seem expendable. Never again. As we walked to the exit, Lucas appeared, almost running. Emily, wait. I'm sorry. I didn't know. I was just trying to prove myself, to show I could cut costs and... Lucas, I stopped, turned. You were right about one thing. I understand. It's just business. I left him standing there in the lobby of the company that would now pay me millions to use my own creations. His $3,800 check having bought him the most expensive lesson of his life. The call came at 8 p.m., just as I was pouring myself a glass of the champagne I'd saved for this moment. Lucas Ford's name on my phone screen like a white flag of surrender. What do you want, Lucas? Can we talk? Really talk, not as CEO to patent holder. Just, please. There was something broken in his voice, like all the Harvard confidence had been scraped away. You have 5 minutes. The board is meeting tonight. Emergency session. They're discussing my position. A pause, heavy with humiliation. They want me gone. I said nothing, letting him sit in the silence he'd created. You know what the worst part is? His voice cracked slightly. I actually thought I was being smart, strategic. My uncle was sick. The board wanted to see cost reductions, and I thought if I could show them, I could make hard decisions. By firing the person who designed your entire product line. I didn't know they were your designs. Everything just said, Metavant Systems Proprietary Technology. Your name wasn't on anything. I thought you were just another engineer, overpaid for basic maintenance work. Just another engineer. The phrase should have stuck.